What is up, people? It's Robbie Dagger, your boy, back again for some Monster Hunter World. In this one, we're gonna talk a little bit. We gotta talk about the sword and the shield. One of the most hated on, disrespected, and just kind of underappreciated and misunderstood jobs in Monster Hunter World. I think it's probably up there as the most misunderstood job, or the most misunderstood weapon. I always say job in Monster Hunter World. And I, as someone who has played multiple weapons, so let me give you some perspective, tell you where I'm coming from. I have played pretty much every non-shield weapon, besides the weeb stick, and to me, it has taken more time to learn how to efficiently play the sword and shield than any other weapon in this game. I would say it's taken me about 40 or 50 hours just to kind of learn how to do damage with this weapon and not die a bunch. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some criticisms, and some of them may be valid, some may be unvalid, but we're going to talk about everything in this little episode of Monster Hunter World. So one of the first and the biggest criticisms we're going to get into is that this is a newbie weapon. The sword and shield is a newbie weapon. So it's definitely not. I think anybody who plays sword and shield a lot will tell you that it's the furthest thing from a new player weapon. I don't know. You guys gotta let me know if it could possibly be just me. I'm not gonna deny that, but for me, this was so hard to learn and so unforgiving. And honestly, I feel like you can do very well with the sword and shield, but you're going to work twice as hard as everybody else. So as someone who has played Gunlance and like played a good amount of Gunlance, I will tell you that Gunlance basically, so let me put it this way, Gunlance tanks so much better, everybody knows that, but for the sword and shield, it kind of does everything. It can do everything. I think that's why a lot of people like it. I think that's why people would call it a new player weapon, because it can do everything. But on the flip side of that, by the time you hit end game, you are, it's not that you can do everything, it's that you have to do everything. You have to use all those little tricks. You have to set traps. You have to use pod ammo. You have to throw out flash pods. You need all that stuff to do damage. And one thing I do want to say is that I think a new player would benefit from learning this weapon, just because, like, yeah, you would leave sword and shield. If you ever did leave sword and shield, you would leave it like with a lot more, just like, it would probably make you a more balanced player, honestly, just because you are used to using all those weapons at your disposal. And the reason why I say that you need to use all that stuff, guys, is because look at the range of sword and shield, man. It is really poor. And it's basically, in my opinion, the worst range of any weapon in the game. And then you've got to also factor in that you've got a shield, which doesn't do damage based off your sword. It does impact damage. So okay, that leads me to one of the second criticisms, is the builds for this weapon. So the weapons available in Monster Hunter World PC for sword and shield right now are just not that great. It seems like, well, to me I like my crit builds, so there's really no crit weapon for anything that has a shield option right now in Monster Hunter World. So I'm doing my best. I got like the master bang here. I've got some affinity on it just to like do my best with that. But so the weapon options, let me talk about that really quick, because there is a little bit to go over there. But really, what most people will tell you to do, and they're not 100% wrong, is to use your elemental weakness, use your elements, or use status effects to do damage, which, you know, works fine, but you have to consider that your shield is going to do impact damage, and your shield doesn't get those status effects. It doesn't get those elemental damage. Now, when you factor in that one of your strongest attacks, just one of your strongest attacks on the job, which is the leaping shield bash, one of your strongest attacks is this leaping shield bash, you're not getting any of that damage. So if you use an elemental weapon, you're not getting any of the elemental damage when you do your shield bash coming down. You would have to do your slashes. So it would lead you to play the sword and shield a little bit more focused on with the slash attacks, which kind of it basically, to me, in my opinion, it takes away about half of your move set, because now you're focused on slashes instead of your bashes, which isn't, it's not the end of the world. Honestly, those slashes can do a very good amount of damage. I'm actually, I was a little bit surprised to see how much damage Sword and Shield could do. The issue is just that the range is so low, and that it's a little bit difficult to play the weapon because of the low range and having basically your weapons are flawed to me, but basically it's the way that the weapon was created by Capcom, so there's nothing that, you know, anybody can do about it. So basically, I think that's why this role gets a lot of hate. People see it as it does like no damage at all, and that can be the case, honestly. I'm not gonna lie, there's times where I get through a battle and, man, I didn't die, but I feel like the battle took extra long because I wasn't able to get that kind of range where you could do damage. And what I find with the Sword and Shield, why I say it's really not a new player weapon, is because as you proceed through the game, as you fight harder and harder monsters, you find that the monsters kind of grow, like they're getting bigger and bigger, and your range isn't getting any bigger. So what I find happens a lot is, before you get really good at doing those leaping shield attacks, doing air attacks, mounting, knocking enemies down in general, until you get really good at that, you're really just swatting at feet and tickling feet a lot and hitting basically non-weak spots. So that could do a lot of negative things to your damage potential in just that by itself. So I totally understand why people kinda don't love to see a Sword and Shield user in their party. Like, I've come into parties and been called a noob. I'm sure every Sword and Shield user has been through that, and it's a very, I don't think it's a noob weapon. I don't think there's anything against anybody using it, but you do have to be really, like, you have to be honestly good. You have to put in a lot of time, honestly, in order to get decent with this weapon, so that you can keep up with your team, basically, because I think Capcom's betting on you using all those items in your inventory. And I know I haven't mentioned anything about playing a support role if you're using this weapon. And that's, honestly, that's not really my thing. You can totally do that, and like your party will love you and stuff, but I kind of more go for damage, so that's kind of where my Sword and Shield focus goes. But I do like to kind of play the all-arounder. Why I really like it. But I do really think that it's very easy to be bad at it, and it's very easy to do almost no damage with it because of just how hard it is to actually get your hits off. Like, you see me get off a couple of these shield bashes, but honestly, it's one of the hardest specials, like job specials, to actually connect to your enemy. And you've got to factor in that the damage is spread out over 4 hits. So two 2 to get you into the air, and then 2 coming down, and those hits don't always hit. Like, you will miss all the time, just because of the animation locking and just the way your character flies up. They kind of have a trajectory that you can't adjust. That's why you'll see all sorts of missing going on when you see people trying to get off these shield bashes. So I can totally understand why people don't play the shield bash route and they play the slashing route, because it's just so hard to connect that ability. I really like doing those slam dunks, so that's why you always see me trying to go in the air. And my build is built around that, so that's how I like to play personally. That's why I see that in my setup. But yeah, just kind of wanted to talk about all that stuff. But definitely interested. I'm by no means a Monster Hunter World like pro or anything. I have put in, I mean, hundreds of hours, and at least we're getting close to like 70-80 hours now with just Sword and Shield. So I did want to say something, because just I've heard so much like criticism on Sword and Shield, and I think it's really misunderstood and underappreciated, honestly. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this short little video. If you did, leave a thumbs up. Hope this video helped you out for your Sword and Shield users out there. If it did, let me know down below. Been a pleasure being your host on this short one. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you later.